All right, press availability day. Anything you folks want to ask, feel free. Light day from our standpoint. I'm very excited that the training camp is going to start today for the Sacramento Kings. I am looking more forward to this season than I have many others. And I'm excited about a new head coach in terms of Paul Westphal. I'm excited about the young new players that are on the team. And I remember my emotion when training camp was starting. They were always mixed. On one hand, you hated to go through two-a-days as a player, but on the other hand, it was a chance to kind of come together with your teammates, and even if you didn't have a great season the year before, everything starts anew, everybody's records are even, and if you have a good training camp during exhibition and get off to the season with a win or two, you have no idea the impact that can have on the rest of your season. So excited about that. I think the other thing is, again, because it's a light day, is to talk about public safety briefly, that day in and day out, we don't talk about public safety, but it is the top priority of mine. In my administration, it's been a top priority while I was campaigning. And, when you think about that, it's the top priority of the people in the community. And my commitment is to fight for every single dollar that we can get. Excited that we were able to get some Homeland Security dollars for surveillance cameras. Those cameras will be voted on tonight. About $600,000 grant is money that you lose it if you don't use it. Those dollars will go toward probably 30 or so surveillance cameras around Sacramento. And I think it's great because I think common sense tells us that there's going to be a reduction in crime by criminals if they know they're going to be monitored or have a chance to be filmed or videoed. So I think that's important in Sacramento. The chief of police will determine where those go. They'll be in high crime areas. Cities around the country have shown that it has reduced or helped apprehend criminals. Chicago, over 1,400 cases have been solved because of these cameras. And I hope that everyone knows what's going on in Chicago right now. A young African-American kid is brutally beaten, but the fact that somebody videotaped it, where they were able to apprehend 3 or 4 of those suspects, and I think it's just one example of what can happen in this whole notion of crime, where some innocent kid who's doing very well has his life taken away from him at such an early age is just devastating for all of us. So our thoughts and prayers go out to him. Continuing the public safety theme real quick. Last week, Sacramento City had a swearing-in service for 10 new police officers. And that is really significant. I mean, my commitment is that we want to preserve the budget of public safety, where we were able to do. We were able to keep the number of officers on the street. We've actually added more officers as opposed to reducing, which that is not happening in a lot of cities around the country. We have 10 new sworn officers as of last week. And I think the important point to note here is 5 of those new officers were from the Sacramento Sheriff's Department. So this is an example where you see Sacramento PD and the Sheriff's Department kind of working together, trying to share, consolidate. And because they had to make 120 or 30 cuts from the Sheriff's force, we were able to take some of those folks. They went through our process and got hired. So I feel good about that. This week I'll be going up to Seattle for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'll be there on Friday and Saturday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, I believe. I have been selected or appointed as vice chair of the National Disaster Response, and that's partly tied to flood emergency preparedness. When you think about the person chairing this is Ray Nagin, the mayor of New Orleans. So New Orleans is the greatest risk of a catastrophic flood in the country, and Sacramento is second. So I get a chance from a national standpoint all the way down to the regional and local level to be lobbying on behalf of our city and our region when it comes to flood protection and us being prepared. So I happily accept that. It ties into public safety in many respects as well. All right, that's what I want to touch on today. It's really about public safety. That's kind of where my head is amongst all the other challenges that we have. So if you guys have general questions, I'd be glad to address any of them.
Mayor, do you know when the other 25 or so police officers part of that grant, when they'll be on the street?
Yeah, I don't know when they'll be on the street. I know they're still in the process trying to determine, what the timeline is for those other 25 or so officers. I've met, the chief and I were supposed to meet this week, I believe, but he had a conference, so we had to reschedule it. So I do not have an update on that. Can get it for you if you need it.
And you've said many times that your goals would be to have 2 police officers per 1,000 residents. And by my calculation, that's another 200 or so police officers. Is that a realistic number, and how do you get to that?
Well, I mean, if you think about the COPS grant, that was $9 million or so, which allowed us to put, a significant additional amount of officers on the street. That's a step in that direction. I think while the goal is, 2 per capita, we're at 1.5 or 1.6, I believe. I don't know what the latest count is. But if we can take steps toward that, 2 per capita, I think it's very significant. Ryan, I would also say this: when you have a down economy and everyone's making budget cuts, you actually want to stay even. You just don't want to dip below, and that's our focus. And we have not only been able to preserve the count that we have, we've actually increased it a little bit. So in this market, I feel good about that and our ability to not dip below where we could have. I think there's been a decline in the number of patrol officers that we've had on the street. I will push it fast forward that, if I had the ability to propose a budget for, which I don't have, it's something that the city manager does. If I had the ability to bring a budget forward, then I have said one of the things that I would like to look at is our existing pot of money in our general fund. We spend about 53% of our general fund on public safety. Is there a chance that you can spend an additional 0.5%? So 53.5 on public safety, or 54%? And what do those additional dollars allow us to do, and how many more officers will that allow us to put on the street? So those are all things that I would like to look at if at some point our government structure changes. All right, any other questions? Yeah, Tom.
Our management had a question for you, if you wouldn't mind. Could you give us your top 3 priorities in order for Sacramento?
I'll do my best.
Okay.
Public safety has always been my top priority for Sacramento, that if you don't keep your streets safe and secure, we're not doing our job. A top priority of mine, even though I don't have a role in this, is educating our children. I think it's extremely important that every young person have access to a high quality education. That's not the case in Sacramento. So I would love to work with the school districts, and we're doing our part to build those relationships. A third priority of mine is really economic development, creating jobs, expanding our general fund and sales tax revenue base. I think the more that we can get to go into our coffer, the better off we are. The challenge has been the state, which you know, but we've been kind of over-reliant on state and local government jobs. I think we have to diversify. We've also been over-reliant on the housing market and development in the Thomas, so kind of diversifying our workforce, expanding the industries that we have. Those are kind of my 3 kind of big ones. I'm going to actually give you some different ones, but those are my 3 big ones. The other ones that are important to me right now that are on my plate is front burner issues. The homeless is an important issue for me right now, because the weather is about to change. You can already see it happening. The county doesn't have enough dollars to keep the winter shelters open. They're talking about closing Mather Air Force Base. And I made calls, I believe today, to every county supervisor advocating for them to try to find dollars for winter shelter and keep Mather open. Because if that doesn't happen, it's going to cost us even more in the long run with more people on the street. So that's a front burner issue on my plate right now. And another one, quite honestly, is the arena. That's a front burner issue for me. We got a wake-up call with the NC2A when they said we are no longer going to hold big-time college basketball in Sacramento because you have an outdated arena. That then means I need to take a step back. I think I said last week here, I got to reassess some of my priorities and how I spend my time and how my staff spends its time. Look at the capacity that I have to deal with everything on my plate, and then figure out how to kind of rejigger what those priorities are. And the arena and homelessness are kind of 2 front burner issues for me, kind of in the context of the big 3.